And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Jersey Joe. How are you?
Great, thanks. Enjoying the fall weather. It's kind of nice upper 60s, lower 70s, sunshine. The rain stopped. How about by you?
No, the rain, it has rained for like the last 14 days straight.
It's still raining there?
It is still raining and it is raining pretty steady.
Did
We're
it rain
kind of
during the
over
did
it.
it rain during the football game yesterday?
Uh, well, yesterday was Monday,
I
so
mean,
no.
Saturday. Was it raining Saturday?
Um, no, the rain actually let up for the game because
I
God's a
couldn't.
Penn State fan, but
Yeah, because I watched the game and I didn't see any rain. Okay. All right. Hey, as you know, we got hung up here trying to get started with a little computer glitch. So let me kind of jump right into this. All right. So today's October 1st. It's the situation with Jersey Joe. The focus is news and perspective you won't hear on TV, and I've got a lot of news and perspective you won't hear on TV. Our quote of the week is from the late George Carlin. You know who George Carlin was,
yep,
right?
yep,
The comedian and
yep,
social critic.
yep.
And what he says is more important than teaching your kids how to read, and I have to agree with him. And as an example of the advice that George Carlin gives, we'll dissect a tweet from the Harris Campaign Committee that might fool a lot of people who read without thinking. And so those two kind of go together. In our stupidest thing I've heard all week segment, we'll tell you which city decided to temporarily ban the sale of guns and ammunition and why. We'll play a campaign ad from a decorated U.S. Navy officer who came to this country from Vietnam as a young boy, as a refugee, and who is now running for the U.S. Senate from his home state of Virginia. We'll tell you how many illegal aliens with felony convictions, including murder, are living free in this country, and you shake your head and say, why? We'll play a clip from the testimony of an FBI whistleblower before the U.S. Senate committee that includes some really startling advice to American people. For some political satire, we'll read you a list put together by the editors of the Babylon Bee of what they call the 10 devastating impacts that would be associated with the elimination of the Federal Department of Education, the DOE. And you've heard Trump and others call for
Mhm.
uh, the elimination of the federal DOE, right? You've heard that.
Yep, yep.
Um, and our taxpayer lead shot comes to us from Jacksonville, Florida, with a woman shoots and kills a man who was trying to break into her, who was attacking her in violation of a restraining order. Where have we heard that before?
Yep.
The restraining order is just a piece of
Pieces of
paper.
paper don't keep the bad guys away.
All right. So here's our quote of the week from the late George Carlin. When I read or go to our next story, this will make even more sense. So here's the quote of the week from George Carlin. He said, "Don't just teach your children to read. Teach them to question what they read. Teach them to question everything. The
Mhm.
value of an education is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind to think." Um, what's your reaction to that?
Absolutely.
It's called critical thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
in this day and age, there's so much, Mark Twain said, figures don't lie, but liars figure. There's been lies, damn lies, and statistics. There's so much misinformation, or, you get, and that's why we call it the situation with Jersey Joe. We tell you about all these one-sided, lopsided news stories that only tell you half the story. We tell you about claims like there's been more than one mass shooting a day in this country. There's been 600 school shootings so far this year, and it's all nonsense. But if you don't think and challenge, you'll just accept that and go through life with a warped view of the world, and you won't be able to make informed decisions, or at least intelligent informed
Yes.
decisions,
Mhm.
if you're relying on bad information. Now, let me give you a classic example. Now, here's a tweet that was put out by the Harris Campaign Committee. Breaking. New reporting shows that not one Fortune 100 CEO supports Donald Trump or JD Vance. Wow. That's pretty damning, isn't it? That not a single Fortune 100 CEO supported Donald Trump or JD Vance. That's
Yep.
that's that's pretty damning, isn't it?
Hmm.
Well, first of all, um, Elon Musk, who is a Fortune CEO, a Fortune 100, in fact, endorsed Donald Trump. But here's the other question. Other than Elon Musk, can you name a single Fortune 100 CEO that has ever endorsed a presidential candidate?
No, typically they don't.
They
Typically
don't.
they keep their at least publicly anyway. Maybe privately they do.
No, but publicly, CEOs, as
Yeah.
a rule, if you're the head of Ford or General Motors or Merck Pharmaceutical, you make it a point
Hmm.
not to embroil yourself in politics.
Yep.
So if you're just, wow, no CEO support Donald Trump. Well, first of all, it's a lie because Elon Musk does support Donald Trump, and he's one of these guys that doesn't give a crap, right?
Yep.
But none, no, other than Elon Musk, no other Fortune CEO has endorsed anybody. So
Hmm.
that's kind of the lopsided thing. Wow, new reporting shows that not one Fortune CEO supports Donald Trump. Well, duh, none of them do. And
Yeah.
well, so the other way to look at Kamala, how many Fortune 100 CEOs have supported you?
None.
Hint, a whole number less than zero. I mean, less than one, right?
Hmm.
So that's the type of thing where if you're not thinking critically, you'll think that as a vote of confidence that they have no confidence in Donald Trump. No, Fortune 100 CEOs typically don't endorse uh, presidential candidates. They try to stay politically neutral. All right. So let's talk about the stupidest thing I've heard all week. And if you have something else, but they had the big hurricane was scheduled to hit Florida last week, right?
Yep.
It was what, Saturday it was supposed to hit?
Yeah, Thursday night, Friday, yeah.
So the city council, and this wasn't the sheriff, the city council passed this and forced the mayor to enforce it. Uh, local state of emergency declared by the city of Okeechobee, Florida. Blah, 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 municipal of Florida, in effect, blah, blah, blah. Said declaration prohibits the following acts for the duration of the declared state of emergency. A, the sale of or offer to sell with or without consideration any ammunition or gun or other firearm of any description. B, the intentional display by or in any store or shop of any ammunition or gun. C, the intentional possession in a public place of a firearm by any person except a duly authorized law enforcement officer or person in military service. So, why do you think that was stupid?
Yeah, he must not be friends with our favorite other sheriff in
Yeah.
Florida of
I mean,
Santa Rosa
you're right.
County. And what's the other county down there?
Grady Judd and the Santa Rosa County. First of all, if you're in a
There's
hurricane,
the other sheriff down there too.
Grady Judd.
No, who's the other sheriff?
I don't know his name. The one of Santa Rosa County, don't know his name.
But yeah, so they're both in Florida and they clearly don't share the same views.
Yeah. So first of all, if you're a homeowner and hey, the phone lines can be down, the power lines can be down, I'm not going to be able to reach the police, or even if I do,
Yep.
the police aren't going to be able to get here because there's going to be trees and power poles blocking the road. Don't you think if you were out of ammo, you'd want to have some ammo?
Absolutely.
And two, when this declaration was declared, people could have said, "Well, crap, I'll just drive over to the next town before the hurricane hits. If I need a box of ammo or two, I'll just drive over to the next town." So, so number one, I think it was stupid to deny homeowners the ability to buy ammunition, and two, if they really needed it before this thing took effect, they could have just driven to the next town and stocked up on ammunition. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's why I think that was. You agree that was a pretty stupid
Yeah.
declaration?
Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
and that's, that part of Florida too. That's not a tourist area. It's not a desolate area of Florida, but it's not, there's a lot of parts of Florida that are like very farmland, and that's one of those very farmland areas.
Yeah. So I just thought that was kind of stupid to declare a state of emergency saying you can't buy guns and ammunition for 3 days. All right. Let's move on. You never probably heard the name of Hung Chow, have you?
No.
Well, he came to the United States as a young boy, Vietnam refugees when I don't know if you were probably too young to remember, but when we pulled out of Vietnam, it fell to the to North Vietnamese, and there was this big scramble for people to get out. Anyway, he escaped with his parents. He didn't get directly here. I think he went over to Cambodia and eventually made his way to the U.S. as a young boy. Anyway, he went on to graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy. He got fellowships in physics from both MIT and Harvard. So he's a decorated. He left the Navy as a captain. He was in the Special Forces, and he's now running for U.S. Senate. Anyway, so this is a guy that knows communism. All right, he lived under communism, and his family was affected by communism. And I want to play you how he feels his experiences and how he's relating to what he sees going on in this country to what he experienced as a young boy. It's about a 2-minute ad. but bear with me while I play this whole 2 minute ad for you.
This is the scariest sound you will hear when you live in a communist country. This is the last sound my parents heard when their fathers were taken away in the middle of the night, and they never saw their loved ones again. That's the sound of losing your freedom, the sound of always living in fear. That's my family's real life story. We escaped from Vietnam just days before Saigon fell to the communists. We were given a new life in the most generous country on earth. America saved my life. I graduated from the United States Naval Academy. I earned a master's in physics and fellowships at MIT and Harvard before the left replaced merit with racial quotas. I spent my life trying to repay my debt to America, my country, our country, with 25 years of service in Navy Special Operations, combat in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia. But now our country has taken a dark turn. That's Joe Biden's Justice Department sending 24 armed agents to arrest a pro-life activist in front of his family. That's Joe Biden's IRS raiding a gun shop and seizing thousands of records from law-abiding gun owners, our names, our addresses, our social security numbers. That's Joe Biden arresting his challenger in the next election, a former president of the United States. And now a different sound. That's the sound of someone breaking into your home or business. The sound of crime destroying our cities and communities. That's how it all starts. They let criminals back on our streets. Millions of illegal immigrants pour across our border each year, including military-aged men from all over the world. And enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in this country. And the Biden family? Well, that's how it works in a dictatorship. The rules don't apply to the rulers. We are losing our country. You know it, but you also know you can't say it. We're forced to say that wrong is right. We're forced to lie. We can't let that happen. I've been all over the world. Believe me when I tell you, if America fails, there's nowhere else to go. I'm Hung Cao, retired Navy captain running for the United States Senate. I still believe America can be the land of opportunity. I have an obligation to fight back against those who want to control our lives and disrupt our families. We need real fighters, not politicians, not bureaucrats, not keyboard warriors acting tough in a custom-made suit.
All right, I'm going to try. There's about another minute to go, but I thought that was a pretty powerful campaign ad from a guy that has lived and experienced
Mhm.
communism firsthand. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, and there was an article, I didn't read the article because I don't have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal, but it popped up in my daily Apple News headlines about Americans being so reliant, more reliant on government aid than ever before
Hmm.
because we are moving in this socialist
Yeah.
economy.
Yeah, there was a famous quote that from one of our founders that a government that can give you everything you need can take everything you want, can take everything you need. Um, by the way, it's just scary. And to echo some of the things he said, the big story last week, but what most people didn't see, that there's a 500,000 people living free in this country who have either been
Mhm.
convicted of felonies or have been charged with felonies and not yet tried, including, by the way, 13,000 immigrants who have been convicted of homicide. Now,
Yeah. Why are these people not in jail? Why are they not behind
while
bars?
some of them were convicted of homicide in other countries and sent here, so we can't imprison them. You know that Venezuela emptied out their prisons, right?
No,
Uh,
I didn't know that.
yeah, Venezuela emptied out their prison. So there are 13,000 immigrants who have been literally convicted of homicide, who have either, now if it was manslaughter, and they were convicted, 6 or 7 years ago, and now they're out on parole, or they were convicted of homicide in Venezuela and they were released or kicked out. There's 13,000 immigrants living in this country free, um, convicted of homicide, but in total, there are 435,000 immigrants in this country living free, um, who shouldn't be here. And let me tell you, if you try to get a visa to come here locally, by the way, I went to Canada, not too long ago. Do you know to get into Canada, like if you have a DUI, you
Yeah, you can't go to Canada.
you can't go to Canada. If you have a DUI, you can't go to Canada.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
believe it's 10 years. You're excluded for 10 years.
you can't go to Canada for 10 years if you have something as simple as a DUI. And if you have felony assault, let's say you're arrested for felony assault and you serve 2 years, you're never getting into Canada ever. Um, and the same thing with the US. So if you apply for a visa to come to this country legally and you have any sort of felony in your home country, you're not going to get a visa.
Yeah,
Uh,
I want to know why are these criminals allowed into our country? And then the people who are here who commit crimes, why are we not deporting them
yeah, and every
or
none
locking them up even?
not locking up. So again, there are, and let me give you the exact number. Right now, there are 435,719 convicted criminal immigrants who are, and these are people are known to ICE, but they're on what's called their non-detained docket, meaning we know who they are, we
Mhm.
have their names, we have their criminal convictions, and they're here in the States. Now, none of these people would be allowed to enter this country legally if they applied for a visa. So my
Mhm.
country is, if I was going to start deporting people, I would start with these 435,719 convicted criminals who don't qualify for legal residency in this country. So
And
again,
those that are here and then commit a crime, either not getting locked up or they're not getting deported.
not getting deported. And again, you didn't hear this story on the local news or in the national news, did you?
Nope.
And by the way, this data can be found in a letter to Congressman Tony Gonzalez, who requested, he made a formal request to the Inspector General of ICE,
Mhm.
saying how many people are here, how many immigrants are in this country with criminal records, and they responded. The letter, producer Susan, I'll give you a copy of the letter. You can post it.
Yep.
You can post it on the
Absolutely.
website. So this is not rumor. This is it's on official Homeland Security letterhead in a
Mhm.
letter to Congressman Tony Gonzalez. So it is fact. But again, we call it news. We call the show News in Perspective. You won't hear on TV. I
Mhm.
guarantee you didn't hear that on TV. All right. Moving on. Here's something, and I'll guarantee you didn't hear this. So, there was an FBI whistleblower, and he was, he blew the whistle on misconduct, and he's resigning because his name is mud within the FBI. But he gave some testimony before Congress, before the Senate actually, and they requested his testimony. I just want to play a little bit of what he said, and remember, this guy's an FBI agent. This is not some crackpot prepper. There's some preppers, that think the world's going to end tomorrow, but this is the comments by this FBI whistleblower. His name is, I believe, Marcus Allen. Here we go.
Yes, sir. I would just say that I consider the hearing today my last act of service as a public servant for the United States of America. And I'll give you my professional opinion. I was an intel professional for our country for many years, and I would give recommendations, and I'd also look at indications and warnings. So I would offer this to the American people as my warning to them. Since this is a warning to the American people, I say, I personally have no confidence that the FBI will rein in its own conduct. I've been persecuted along with Garrett, Steve, and Kyle, and countless other whistleblowers. It is my opinion that the Bureau used reprisal and fear to control the workforce. It has been a seemingly effective tactic. I personally believe that there are no current effective checks and balances against them conducting lawless action with any type of correction in a legitimate time frame. I welcome the work of the IG, but I think any type of lawless action, there's no legitimate time frame to rein them back in. Their ability to overclassify information can allow them to stonewall forever. To the American people, you have a duty as a citizen to vote, and I strongly urge you to do so. It's how you participate in the American experience. I know people have doubts about election integrity, but you must vote. It is your claim. Stake your claim and don't forfeit it willingly. Have your voice heard. My other recommendations are in the natural order. First, vote. The second is the Second Amendment. Arm yourself and know how to defend yourself. Make 3 to 4 friends in your neighborhood and promise to come to each other's mutual aid in times of hardship. And during the Great Depression, people stocked up a pantry. So I think that's a good practice, especially in our economic times, and make sure you have 3 to 4 months of food. And as a person of faith, I'd say pray the rosary, go to the First Friday devotions. That's for everybody, all my brothers and sisters of all faiths, and I know I'm Catholic, and read the gospel of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and live it every day. And that's all I have to say.
So that was kind of radical for an FBI agent. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a little unnerving that that's coming from somebody who's, in the know on national security.
But I think he's looking forward to, there's all sorts of things about civil unrest depending on who wins the election and whatnot. But civil unrest, you get hurricanes and whatnot. I think his comments about, stocking up on food and civil unrest, and you can have a terrorist attack could, they talk about the terrorist, could take down our electrical infrastructure or water processing plants.
Mhm.
And this guy, by the way, he was actually an intelligence specialist for the FBI. So he gets to look at all these terrorist threats. So he's got inside information in terms of how vulnerable this country is. So, um, yeah, he was a FBI intelligent operations specialist. So when this guy says, arm yourself, stock up on ammunition and food, he might know something that we don't know. So that's
Yeah.
just
I mean, do you have 3 months worth of food in your pantry?
no, I don't. I've probably got 3 weeks worth of food. I don't have three
Yeah.
weeks worth of food.
I'd say that's fair assessment as well.
However, I've got food walks by in my backyard every morning, so I literally, I've actually thought about this, and if worse came to worse, my neighborhood there are deer. You can't throw a stick without hitting a deer in this neighborhood. So if I had to live for 3 months, trust me, I know how to skin a deer and butcher a deer. There's a stream that runs not too far from my house, and I bought some of these. By the way, you go on Amazon or Walmart in the camping, you can buy these little water sanitizing pills.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
don't, yeah, and they're really cheap. You can buy a bottle for like $6, and you put one in a gallon of water. And so I've actually thought about this, and I actually bought some water purification tablets. So I've got deer and I've got a stream. So trust me,
And
I
I know you got a generator
I've
too.
got a
And
generator too. So I
yeah.
I could survive. So, but
I do. I also have a herd of deer that walks through my yard every day, but I don't know that I could skin one.
okay. Well, trust me, if you got hungry enough, you would figure it out. It's not that difficult. All right. You might have some friends know how to skin. Memory said get
Oh
some.
yeah, I'm sure I have some friends that know how to skin a deer
All right.
and a full bottle of propane.
And a full bottle of propane. All right. Um, and you got wood, you make a fire, right? You got a hatchet, you got a wood, and you can
Uh,
make a wood fireplace.
well, I don't have a fireplace though.
But you can make like a little fire pit out back, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. So let's move on to abolishing the Department of Education, which I'm a big fan of that. But,
Mhm.
my view has always been if your local school board and your state Department of Education don't know how to run a school, then maybe you've got the wrong people in your
Yeah,
local
oh,
government.
absolutely.
All right. So here's the Babylon Bee. They compiled this list of the terrifying and devastating consequences that might arise from abolishing the federal Department of Education. This is tongue in cheek. Number one, fewer tax dollars will be taken by the federal government, which means you might now be forced to take your kids to Disneyland this year because you'll be paying less taxes. Two, children will only learn about two of the 72 genders. Three, a child might get left behind. This has not happened once since it was declared in America that no child will be left behind. In other words, if a child is not up to speed on reading or math, he might get left behind, which happened when I went to school on a fairly regular basis. But I haven't heard of a kid getting left back in a decade. Have you?
No, I haven't. And rather than pushing these kids through, why aren't we giving them the help that they actually need?
Right, exactly. And I think like in Chicago and Baltimore, I read that, some huge percentage of the kids that do graduate can't even read or do math at an eighth grade level, which is really
Mhm.
tragic. Well, that was number three. So number four, kids will learn how to do math the actual way instead of with those weird number lines. So you remember
Sure.
this new
Yes.
math?
I mean, I learned how to do math from right to left, and now they're teaching it from left to right.
And I've seen that where you do circles, you do diagonal, you do anyway. So learn math the old way. Number five, there will be no one to write this page intentionally left blank on intentionally left blank pages on standardized tests. States won't be able to handle this level of complicated bureaucratic finagling. Number six, 4,400 unelected government bureaucrats will have to find new jobs as CNN correspondents. Number seven, kids will never learn how to do anything, just like it was before 1979 when the Department of Education was founded. Number eight, decentralizing government power is always a bad idea. That's that was tongue in cheek. Obviously, decentralizing government power is always a great idea. No one will remember the DARE program, DARE, the DARE
Yeah,
program.
keep kids off drugs. I forget what it stands for though.
Yeah, no one will dare to keep the kids off drugs. And illicit drugs will run rampant through our American schools, which is totally different from the way things are now, right?
Mhm.
Finally, 2 + 2 will equal 4 again. Back to the horrific, oppressive days of the 1950s we would go. Anyway, how much time we got?
We only have about 7 minutes left.
All right, I'm going to play one more quick thing. I didn't have this in the preview, but I'm a huge supporter of the First Amendment. And yeah, the First Amendment, people can lie and whatnot. But yeah, I think, first of all, if you're a racist, and I want to know who you are. I want you to run your mouth off. And if you want to tell me lies, which by the way, it's up to me to figure out that you're lying. It's not up to government to say, this person is lying to you. We're not going to let him speak. I think that's such a slippery slope, particularly who gets to decide who's telling the truth. So
Mhm.
here's John Kerry, who was a U.S. Senator. He was our Secretary of State. And here's John Kerry basically saying that the First Amendment is a roadblock to accomplishing what he wants to do, then followed by AOC, who's saying the same thing. Here we go.
Called the First Amendment a major block in having any sort of accountability on facts from the media. His remarks highlighting the debate over free speech and controversial efforts to police fake news or disinformation.
There's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence.
That to me is scary. He wants the power of government to, quote, hammer out of existence anything they declare to be fake news. Don't you find that scary?
Yeah. There's so much fake news out there.
Yeah, there is, but it's up to you and me to be educated consumers.
Yeah.
Now let me move on to AOC here. Hang on. Who says something very, very similar. Here we go, AOC. All right.
Have led to the resurfacing of a similar sentiment by progressive Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In 2021, in an Instagram Live video, she also called for a restraint on the media.
We're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false.
I don't care. I want them to be able to say things that are false. It's my job to figure that out. It's not your job to do it for me. Anyway, that's my little rant. Any thoughts on the First Amendment and people saying we need to get rid of the First Amendment?
No, we shouldn't be getting rid of the First Amendment, but anything that comes out of AOC's mouth, I tend to ignore.
All right. Well, then let's move on to our taxpayer relief shot. And again, we call them taxpayer relief shots because, I didn't tee this up, but I'll do this really, really quick. Hang on. Santa Rosa County. Here's why we call them taxpayer relief shot.
somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully you'll save the taxpayers money.
Again, so we've talked many times, but if you catch a thug and he's arrested and he goes to jail, he gets a trial at taxpayer expense, court-appointed attorney, goes to jail for 10 years. That's $1 million of taxpayers' money. If he goes to jail for life, it's $5 million of taxpayer money.
And clearly not friends with the sheriff Okeechobee County.
That's correct. All right, so here's this woman from Jacksonville, Florida. There we go.
Within the past half hour, about a woman who shot and killed an intruder in this Ortega Farms neighborhood early this morning. Neighbors tell us the intruder was her children's father, and she had a restraining order against him. News 4 Jax reporter Brittany Mueller is live outside the apartment complex on Katoma Street. And Brittany, you just got new information from the state attorney's office.
Yes, I did, Mary. That court hearing was scheduled for this morning about that restraining order. They had 2 kids together and broke up last March. But since then, she says he's threatened to kill her. A smashed window and crime scene tape covering the back of this Mission Springs apartment on the west side.
When I pulled up, I immediately, my heart dropped. About 2.5 years ago, my cousin was killed. Somebody broke in and killed him. Over in the apartments right down from her.
Police say they received multiple 911 calls about gunfire on Katoma Street near Timuquana Road, including one from a woman who said she was the shooter. When officers arrived, the woman told police that the intruder was still inside of her apartment. Homicide detectives found the man laying on the floor by the master bedroom with multiple gunshot wounds.
You never know. You got to be prepared for something like that in any moment.
It's very concerning because it's a lot of seniors, children, and elderly people out here.
News 4 Jax crime and safety expert Ken Jefferson says if someone is forcefully entering your house, you have the right to protect yourself.
A person after midnight or in the wee hours of the morning is unlawfully entering this house. The person's inside, don't know who it is, don't know what's going on, other than there's an intruder coming through. And they have the right to protect themselves, even if it means using deadly force.
There have been several other cases where intruders have been killed. In April, a 36-year-old man was shot to death after he kicked in a door in Riverside. And in December of last year, a 21-year-old was killed when he tried to break into a neighbor's home in Julington Creek. And the sheriff's office says this is an ongoing investigation, and the next step will be for the state attorney's office to decide if this shooting will be ruled justifiable or if any charges will be filed. We'll keep.
If any. Now, can you imagine the state attorney general saying, yeah, we're going to file charges against this woman?
Yeah,
Not,
I don't think so.
Never going to happen. Anyway, so again, restraining orders are just a piece of paper. If you're a woman and you have a violent or crazy ex-boyfriend, crazy ex-husband, that restraining order is not going to protect you if he comes to hurt you. Anyway, anything you want to add before we sign off?
No.
All right. Anyway, so I want to thank everybody who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about the things I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found those topics as interesting and important as I did. If you want to see some materials and story links you heard me talk about today, give producer Susan a day or two and she'll have them up on our website at jerzeyjoe.com. And that's J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee, jerzeyjoe.com. No space, just jerzeyjoe.com. If you want to send me an email with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, you can do that by sending me an email to just Joe at jerzeyjoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and a double E. And other than that, producer Susan, unless you've got anything else you want to add, I'll call it a night, and we'll talk to you next week. You're good?
Just hoping this rain stops.
All right, maybe I'll be joined next week. Take care.